New camera, I know it looks different, but it's the same old, same old. Without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the video that you've all been waiting for, the 2021 NHL Winnipeg Jets prospect tier list. So we're going to be ranking the top 25 Jets prospects currently in their systems from S tier down to D tier. We're going to be going over their stats, the reasons why I think that, and all the other thoughts. So get in. This is going to be a long one, but without any further ado, this is the most requested video that I've ever had on the channel, so I know you guys have been looking forward to a while. Now, just one more thing before we jump into the video. I won't keep going on this intro and dragging it out because I'm excited to bring you guys this list because I put a lot of effort into it and I think it's pretty damn good. But, like I said, this is just my list. This is my opinion, and I would love to hear your opinion if you differ with me down in the comment section below. Please do it respectfully. I would love to hear your guys' list. Whatever list you guys, also, if you don't want to comment your list is, go down in the comment section, find the list that you think is best represents what your beliefs are. Like it. I want to see what your guys' opinion are on this one. This is a very opinionated video. Everyone's going to have a different opinion, I feel like, so I would love to hear all of your thoughts down in the comment section below, as always. And without any further ado, let's jump into this, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be starting this off with the S tier of prospects. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, here we are. We have the list. We are ready to go. And starting it off with the number 1 Winnipeg Jet prospect currently in the system, I don't think it's any question, really. It is going to be Cole Perfetti. Now, before we also jump into this, I should probably also say that how I'm grading this tier of the S tier guys is the cream of the crop prospects. The best of the best. The guys who are basically all NHL ready that could make the jump to the NHL now. The guys that have also played and showed a lot of development and promise on the Manitoba Moose. And the guys that also have the most trade value. This is the best the Winnipeg Jets have to offer in the prospect category. Now, with that being said, let's talk about Cole Perfetti, because if you don't know, Cole Perfetti had a fantastic rookie season with the Manitoba Moose. He was allowed to play in the AHL this year, even though because of his age and his contract situations with the OHL, but nonetheless, because of COVID, he was able to get that opportunity to play with the Manitoba Moose in the AHL, and boy, did he make the most of it. In 32 games played, he was able to put up 9 goals, 17 assists for 26 points as an underage rookie in the AHL. The guy was so good that he actually has potentially earned himself a spot maybe with the Winnipeg Jets going into this coming up season through preseason and training camp. It'll depend how he looks with everybody else, but Cole Perfetti has already made himself the cream of the crop for the Winnipeg Jets prospects in just 2 years of being with this organization. So that is without a doubt the number 1 guy that the Jets have right now, a guy that is part of the future, a guy that is part of the win now mode as well. A great piece to have, and Cole Perfetti is an absolute gem. Coming in at the number 2 spot, we are going to have Ville Heinola. Now, I'm pretty sure you guys suspected that already. You know how I feel about Ville Heinola. He is without a doubt one of the greatest defensive prospects the Jets have ever had when they've come to drafting. When you look at the guys they've been able to bring in, he's a more dynamic defender than what Josh Morrissey is. He's also more dynamic, I would say, than what Jacob Trouba is, and he just brings that wow factor to a blue line. He's so composed. He's also very good on the penalty kill. He's a very good player to have anywhere really as a defender, not to mention he can put up some points. Going through his stats through last year, a guy that performed at every single level in the Liga in 19 games, he was able to put up 1 goal, 13 assists for 14 points. With the Moose, he was able to put in 19 games, 4 goals, 7 assists for 11 points in 19 games. Our best defender in just 19 games played, ladies and gentlemen. Not to mention the fact that he also played with the Winnipeg Jets this year. Only 5 games played, didn't put up a point, but he was able to put up a very impressive rookie campaign, as you could call it, I guess, even though it's not a full rookie season, but his rookie card came out that year, so I'm calling it his rookie season. Back when he was able to play his first 8 games with the Winnipeg Jets, he looked fantastic. A lot of people thought, including myself, he had earned a spot with that club for the full season with the blue line roster that we had at the time, but nonetheless, Ville Heinola is a very crucial part of this team moving forward. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, we have Chaz Lucius, our most recent pick, and I know what I said about guys being NHL ready in the S tier. This is the one exception. Chaz Lucius is without a doubt not NHL ready going into next season, but he brings so much value as a prospect that I had to put him at the number 3 rank because of what his potential is already. He is exactly the type of player that I see in Cole Perfetti, and the fact that he could have a dynamite season with the Manitoba Moose if he was given that opportunity, and he could propel himself even further than what most scouts had him as going later in the draft. He was drafted obviously this year at 18th overall, which is very impressive that the Jets were able to get Cole Perfetti and Chaz Lucius at 10th and 18th overall in back-to-back drafts. In my opinion, those are some of the greatest steals we've seen from prospects in the last few years, and obviously the Jets going under the radar with their drafting as usual, making some great picks. But Chaz Lucius is a great player. He was able to put up in 12 games with the United States Junior League in the UCHL. He was able to put up 13 goals, 5 assists for 18 points in 12 games. A very impressive number, and this guy's got so much dynamic ability to his game. I'm very excited to see how he will play in the future. Now, moving on to the number 4 spot, we are going to have defenseman Dylan Samberg. Now, Dylan Samberg was drafted way back when in 2017, 43rd overall, and had a pretty damn impressive campaign with the Manitoba Moose. When you look at what he was able to do in 32 games played with the Manitoba Moose, put up a goal and 6 assists for 7 points. He was a very reliable defender, and that's exactly what his game is, a very reliable two-way defender that can also put up points. He's a very valuable piece to have if you're the Jets right now trying to win, and I expect to see him making the team very soon as a call-up guy. He is going to obviously be a better version of what Tucker Pullman was, and I'm very excited to see how his growth will become in the NHL. Next up on this list at the number 5 spot, we have center David Gustafsson. And David Gustafsson, was drafted in 2018, 60th overall, and put up pretty impressive numbers this year in general throughout different leagues. Over in Hockey Allsvenskan, excuse me if I butchered that pronunciation. You guys know how I am with pronunciations, but nonetheless, in 16 games over there, he was able to put up 17 points. In 22 games with the Moose this year, he was able to put up 7 goals, 12 assists for 19 points, and he was also cracked 4 games with the Jets this year and not be able to register a point, but still look pretty impressive. I expect to see David Gustafsson centering that 4th line. Imagine an Adam Lowry, but a little bit more offense. That's exactly what Gustafsson is. A very good depth center that you want if you're a team trying to win now, and he's a very valuable piece to have. So nonetheless, David Gustafsson, without a doubt, coming in at the number 5 spot. Now, our final player in the S tier of categories is going to be a player that a lot of you will be familiar with. Winnipeg Jets 2019 first-round pick at 24th overall, Christian Vesalainen. Now, Vesalainen is a very interesting player because a lot of these guys, analysts, have expected Vesalainen to do more with the Jets and the opportunity he's been given than what we've seen. But nonetheless, I still have a lot of faith in this kid. He's got a deadly shot, he's got a hard shot, and he's a very good power forward. He's a very skilled player that just has finally been able to put his game together. I feel like when you look at him this year with Liga, in 10 games played, he was able to put up 4 goals, 4 assists for 8 points, as well as being able to put up in 6 games, register a point per game, a goal and 5 assists for 6 points in 6 games with the Manitoba Moose, a guy that's been very good at the AHL level, that has been only getting better over in Europe. I expect to see him get a full-time position next year with the Jets. It's really up all balls in his court at this point. He's got a lot of people like me that believe in him, and I expect to see a lot of good things from Christian Vesalainen. So without a doubt, a very, very solid prospect. And that's going to round up the S tier of prospects, ladies and gentlemen. So right now, we have Cole Perfetti at 1, Heinola at 2, Lucius at 3, Dylan Samberg at 4, Gustafsson at 5, and Christian Vesalainen at 6. Now, moving on from that, we are going to be jumping straight into the A tier. Now, the A tier category are guys that are about 2 to 3 years away from being consistent potential NHL guys. Guys who have great promise and have shown a lot of development, but just need a little bit more experience with the Moose, and guys that are a lot more raw compared to the S tier, where we have guys that are ready for the NHL. These guys have great skill, but they're definitely not NHL ready. And starting off with the A tier at the number 7 ranked prospect for the Winnipeg Jets, we are going to have defenseman Declan Chisholm. Now, you already know how I feel about Declan Chisholm. Declan Chisholm is a gift to the Winnipeg Jets. We got him with the pick that we got from trading Drew Stafford to the Boston Bruins way back when at the deadline. That was a 6th round pick. He was drafted 150th overall, and the guy had an incredible rookie campaign when you look at his numbers. Another younger guy breaking into the AHL as a rookie this year with the Manitoba Moose. 28 games played, 2 goals, 11 assists for 13 points. I don't say this in any way, in any disregard to the best Jets defenseman of all time, but Chisholm has the potential to be the greatest offensive defenseman the Jets have ever had. He's got so much offense to his game that it's not even fair for the opponent. He needs to work on his defense, and his skills are very raw still for that AHL, NHL level, but if he can develop his game and become a better suited defenseman that can play defense but also have that offensive ability, this guy is going to be so deadly at the NHL level, and without a doubt an A-tier prospect. I just want to see more from him with the Moose next season, and potentially he could be with the Jets the year after that. He's got so much potential. I love this kid. He better not get traded, Chevy. You guys have a steal in this kid, and it was a gift that you were able to get him that late with a pick that was gifted to you for a corpse of Drew Stafford that year. Because let's be real, Jets fans, Drew Stafford was horrible after we traded him, right? And before we traded him that year. So thank God we turned Drew Stafford into Declan Chisholm. All praise the mighty Chevy. Now, coming in at the number 8 spot, ladies and gentlemen, that's 9, I can count, it's 8, don't worry, is going to be goaltending prospect, and you knew he was going to be on here, Mikhail Birdin. Now, the Birdman is a very interesting prospect because you might be wondering, Jake, why didn't you put Mikhail Birdin in the S tier? Isn't he the guy that you suspect to be the backup next year? Now, yes, I would say that. In any other disregard, I would say that, yes, he's a better backup option than Eric Comrie, who we also have at this list still years later, but you'll hear me out for that reasoning later. Now, the reason why I put him in A tier instead of S tier is because I used to be on the side of giving him the backup reins for this coming up season for the Jets. Now, I want to see one more year of him in the AHL, give him a full year as the starting goaltender and then for the Moose before you give him that backup job. I think it'll be great for his development in the long run. I know we don't have Brossoit anymore, and having Comrie as the backup looks scary, but Mikhail Birdin has the potential to be a starter, not just a backup that's a good backup, a starter, and I don't want to rush him. He's a very valuable trade piece and a very valuable piece to try to win with right now, so I think using him in the long run will be a better strategy for this team than using him right now at the current level of his game. Now, he's not bad by any means. With the Manitoba Moose this year in 30 games played, a goals against average of 2.89 with a save percentage of 897. That's not terrible, but I want to see those numbers jump up before he becomes a consistent NHL backup goaltender to the Vezina winner, Connor freaking Hellebuyck. You got the banner way up there, baby. Now, coming at the number 9 spot, we are going to have defenseman Leon Ganak. Now, Leon Ganak is a very interesting defensive prospect because a lot of Moose fans would make the argument that he could potentially crack the Jets lineup. Now, I think that's very true, but unfortunately, Leon is one of those guys that is a good prospect, but is being leapfrogged over by constant other threats. A guy like Chisholm, I see, is a better potential option in the future than him. A guy like Sandberg is a better option than him. Heinola, a better option than him. So because of all these guys getting in front of him, I had to drop him down on my list. He's a very good defenseman, a reliable two-way guy, a Moose, a very consistent threat on that Moose blue line. He's very, very valuable to this team. I just don't know when he'll actually become a consistent NHLer, or if that at this point, because you have to remember Sami Niku is still a guy on the press box looking in, and if Sami Niku is looking in, Ganak is probably not going to be getting a look anytime soon. Now, coming in at the number 10 spot, rounding out the top 10 prospects, and also rounding out our A-tier category, we are going to have defensive prospect Simeon Lundmark, who was drafted in 2019, 51st overall, and had a pretty impressive campaign as a defenseman this year in the SHL. With link hopping, excuse me if I butchered that again, he was able to put up 47 games played, 2 goals, 8 assists for 10 points, a very reliable two-way defenseman, and just the same as Ganak at this point. A guy who I want to see play in the Moose more and see how he plays on North American ice before I give him a higher rating, but still has a lot of value and still is a very raw prospect, but still has a ton of skill that can really translate well, I feel like, to North American ice. So I'm not going to give him a B tier, but I still feel like he deserved to have an A tier nonetheless. He's a very good defensive prospect, a guy that has tons of potential still. I want to see what he'll look like with the Manitoba Moose before I give him a booster, a higher up rating than 10th overall. That is what we have right now for the top 10, rounding out our S tier and A tier. So now, moving on to the B tier. Now, the B tier is more interesting. This is a bunch of more of the guys that have a ton of potential, but are still missing an element that makes them an NHL player. So a guy that is great offensively, but his defense game is non-existent. A guy that can score goals, but doesn't pass the puck. Those type of things. So a guy that has a lot of raw skill, but still needs to put his game together before he becomes a consistent guy that can break an NHL team. And starting this off is going to be at number 11, the left wing prospect drafted in 2020, 40th overall, Daniel Torgensen. Now, Daniel Torgensen's a very interesting player because he could have easily jumped up and made the A tier, but again, I want to see what he looks like next year, another full year of him playing more hockey than what we saw this year with the COVID-shortened season for most of the world. Over in the J20 National League, I believe over in Europe, he was able to play in 10 games, 4 goals, 5 assists for 9 points, just shy of a point per game player, a very skilled player, a fast, youthful forward who's got a good defensive game and also has a lot of offensive upside, a great vision as well, a guy that can pick his shot selections well and also pass the puck. A very interesting prospect, but nonetheless still a prospect that needs more time to grow before he can make that A tier. Now, coming in at the number 12 slot, we're going to have a guy that is very familiar to you Jets fans out there because he was just drafted by the organization. 2021's 50th overall, Nikita Chebarkov. Now, Chebarkov is a very interesting player because, like I said, categorizing the B tier list of guys, he's got amazing offensive skills, but his defensive side of the game is non-existent. That's why he fell to the second round, 50th overall. If this guy was more of a complete player, he would have been a first round pick. Over with St. Petersburg in the KHL, he was able to put up in 16 games a goal and an assist for 2 points. Over in with St. Petersburg in the VHL, he was able to put up in 20 games, 3 goals, 5 assists for 8 points. And over in the MHL, as well with St. Petersburg, 11 games played, 3 goals, 6 assists for 9 points. A guy that played pretty damn well at every level of professional hockey they had in Russia. He's a very interesting player, and I can't wait to see what happens more with his growth. I really do think this guy could be a wild card for us in the future, but nonetheless, as it stands right now, a guy that's got a great potential, but still needs to work on that defensive side of his game before he can really jump in and be a consistent NHLer. Now, coming into the number 13 spot is undrafted center Christian Reichel. Now, Christian Reichel is a very interesting player because last year he was able to put up in 29 games played, 6 goals, 6 assists for 12 points, and like I just said, undrafted. So Christian Reichel coming in, being an undrafted player is very interesting because he's another one of those guys that is a wild card at this point. He's very, very skillful, but nonetheless, he's still an interesting player because you don't know what you're going to get with him, just like with Trebarkov. He needs to work on all of his game. I want to see more of him with the Moose next year. I really think he could be a good depth call-up type guy for the Jets to have in the future. He's got a ton of potential, and he's just a really, really good fit with this Jets organization, I feel like, and I'm really excited to see his growth with this organization moving forward into next season. Now, coming in at the number 14 spot, we're going to have left winger / right winger, another undrafted player, Jonah Luotu. Now, Jonah Luotu is a very interesting guy because he's very skilled at doing the little things right. He's not an offensively gifted player. He was only able to put up 4 points in 11 games for the Manitoba Moose, but when you go over to his Liga stats in 19 games played, 5 goals, 4 assists for 9 points, a guy that doesn't put up a ton of points, but does a lot of the defensive side of things right, hits hard, is a gritty depth forward, and I really think Jonah Luotu could be a guy we see get more call-ups compared to some of these other guys, not because of the skill level, but because of that Paul Maurice grit value. He's a really type of player like that with a lot of grit, defensive-minded guy, and I really like that about hockey players that play that bottom 6 role for a team. I really like Jonah Luotu, especially on the Moose. I really want to see his game develop more. I think he's a solid B prospect who could be an A prospect after this potential season with the Moose. We're going to have to wait and see. I still like his game, but I want to see more develop from him on that offensive side. I want to see him have more of a two-way balanced game than just be one heavily defensive player, because usually the guys like that are more utility than consistent NHLer, but we'll have to wait and see with his growth. Nonetheless, a very interesting prospect. Now, I hope you guys are enjoying this video so far. We are currently going into number 15 on this list. We're halfway there, basically, less than over halfway. I don't know. A point being, though, if you're enjoying the video at this point, drop a like, subscribe. It really does help the channel out. I appreciate you guys sticking with us this far. We're almost going to get there. But without that being said, let's keep going on this list. Now, coming in at the number 15 spot is a guy that a lot of you Jets fans should know pretty well, and that is Henri Nikkanen. Now, Henri Nikkanen is a very interesting player because a lot of you might be thinking, oh, he should be up in the A tier. Personally, I disagree. I think he's a very, very good player, but nonetheless, he just doesn't have that, wow factor, I guess I would say. I don't know. There's just something about him as a player that I don't think in the long run it's going to be a successful fit. I just think that when you look at him right now, he's going to be a good guy to have with the skills he has, speed, offense, but he's just not a complete player yet. He's got elements to his game that I love, but as a complete player, I just don't see it right now. I want to see more growth from him this year. I thought I would be able to see it, and I did a little bit, but not a ton, I guess. I don't know. When you look at his stats, the guy was able to put up in 47 games played with the Liga, 7 goals, 13 assists for 20 points, and that's not amazing, but I want to see him get more goals. The guy's so fast. He has so much offensive upside if he can use his speed and balance that out. I think he just needs to find that right balance. So right now, Nikkanen at 15 I think is very, very fair. But coming at the 16th spot is a complete different flip from a forward who's very fast to a very reliable goaltender in Arvid Holm. Now, Arvid Holm is another interesting prospect, and he's going to be the last B-tier prospect that we have in this list because he's a very interesting player because you can look at his stats and say, oh, those aren't bad. A 270 goals against average with a save percentage of 914 in 24 games played as a starter. Now, that's not bad at all, don't get me wrong, but I think that at this point, with Hellebuyck being the Vezina winning star of the franchise that he is, and Mikhail Burden being a fan favorite, a guy that has played pretty damn well with the Moose already, I don't know when we see Arvid Holm make the Jets. Now, maybe he plays with the Moose next year and we have a tandem of Holm and Burden. I would be definitely okay with that, but moving forward, I'm just not sure what the tandem is going to be with Hellebuyck with the prospects we have, and I want to see more from Holm at that AHL level. We haven't really seen him there yet. After the season, he could even jump up to the S tier potentially on the season he has. We'll have to wait and see, but right now, I think he's a very good goaltending prospect that I want to see more of on North American ice. Alright, at this point, ladies and gentlemen, we're getting to the C-tier players. Now, again, the C-tier players are guys that are most likely at this point looking to be career AHLers or guys that will get the call up here and there. They're not really star power NHL players or even depth guys, but they're still very skilled prospects that have potential. They're just not that NHL caliber guy right now, and personally, I don't know if they ever will be. That's not a knock on them because the AHL is the second best league in the world, you can argue, next to the KHL, so I think that's pretty damn good if you can make the AHL and be a star there. So let's talk about the C-tier players, and starting off the C-tier list is going to be defenseman Nelson Nogier. Now, Nelson Nogier is a very interesting player because a lot of Jets fans were familiar with him way back when because he was drafted in 2014, one of our older prospects for sure, 101st overall. Last year with the Manitoba Moose, only able to put up a goal and 2 assists for 3 points in 12 games. I just don't know what's going to become of him. I used to think he may get a look at the NHL level. He could be a good guy for us depth-wise, but then Tucker Pullman happened, and a bunch of other players have happened since then as well. So at this point, he's a great player, but I just don't know what to expect with his game and all the other players ahead of him that are defenders. I just don't see a good future with him with the Winnipeg Jets organization. And then moving on to the 20th spot on our, 20th spot, the 18th spot, we're going to have Harrison Blaisdell. Now, Harrison Blaisdell is an interesting player nonetheless because when we drafted him back in 2019, 134th overall, I didn't know what to expect with him because he was one of those guys that, okay, he could be good, he could be bad, a later round pick, let's just wait and see. Looking at last year in the NCAA with the North Dakota Fighting Hawks, in 19 games played, only able to put up 4 assists for 4 points. So I want to see obviously more than him before I can rank him any higher. I think he's got a ton of potential, but he's got to put that together and find his groove and really start showing how he can leapfrog some of these guys or potentially to earn a spot on that list. When you look at where a guy like Blaisdell is compared to a person we just drafted, Cheburkov, who's already a B tier list, and a guy like Torgensen as well, I just don't know when he'll make the G League. These players are already better than him that are younger, so we'll have to wait and see how it happens, but he's nonetheless still an interesting prospect, but I still don't know what'll happen with him because of all the other guys that are in front of him currently right now. And moving on from Harrison Blaisdell, we're going over to number 19, Nathan Smith. Now, I know you guys can't see his face there because tier list decided to cut him off, but Nathan Smith is another interesting prospect, a guy that is coming out of Minnesota State University of the NCAA, 91st overall, drafted in 2018, a center. He was able to put up in 28 games played, 9 goals, 16 assists for 25 points. Now, he's a very interesting prospect, don't get me wrong, but the reason why I didn't rank him higher is because I have this thing when college players take a lot longer in college to come to the league. I don't really like that. They're older. You don't know how their game will translate, actually finally jumping to the AHL and NHL at an older age. Tucker Pullman, it worked, I guess, a little bit, but he's a rare case of a guy actually being a later round pick coming in and being successful after spending a full term in college, or I guess year, whatever the point being, term is I'm looking for. You know what I'm trying to say. I just want to see him play with the Moose. I want to see him play more with men. I want to see him grow his game more than just being a college player. So at this point right now, I have to rank him at a C tier because I just haven't seen enough of him to warrant a NHL ready position type label on him, or a guy that's a Moose all-star type of player, you know? I haven't seen that yet from him, so we're going to have to wait and see to find out more, but as it stands right now, nonetheless, a very interesting prospect at 19, excuse me. Now, moving over from 19 to 20, we're going to have Jonathan Kravosky. Either way, ladies and gentlemen, you know who I'm talking about. My boy Johnny over here. I'm sorry I butchered your name. Nonetheless, he is another interesting prospect. A defenseman that was drafted way back when in 2017, 74th overall. Last year with the Moose, 2 goals, 12 assists for 14 points. At this point, I just see him as a career AHL type defenseman, maybe a call-up here or there. The problem is right now, the Jets have so many younger, more raw, better defensive prospects than a guy like this on the Moose currently that's spent a lot of time with the Moose, so I just can't rank him any higher. It feels like a crime to rank him in the same category as a guy like Simeon Lundemark or someone like that, so I just couldn't do it. I had to give him the C tier. It's not a knock on him. He's a good player, but again, I just don't see him being a consistent guy in the NHL anytime soon. Moving on from him, though, to our last player on our C tier list at 21, 2018's 215th overall draft selection, center Austin Wong. Now, Austin Wong plays on the Fargo Force in the UCHL. Last year, in 49 games played, he was able to put up 15 goals, 9 assists for 24 points. A very solid prospect, let me remind you. But the problem with him, just like everybody else on this list in the C tier, is that I don't know if he will get a look anytime soon with the Jets. He was drafted back in 2018, so that is more current than some of the other guys. Like, he's the same year as Nathan Smith, a year earlier than Harrison Blaisdell. I just don't know what will happen with him. He's a good prospect with good numbers, but will he make the Jets? Will he even make the Moose and be a consistent guy there? It's all up in the airs right now. I think he'll be a good fit in the Moose, honestly, and I would love to see him play. I like Austin Wong. I think he's been pretty damn good on the Force in the UCHL, but nonetheless, we'll have to wait and see with him, another project piece. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so that is going to round up everything going in from S tier to C tier. Now we have one tier left going from 22 to 25, the last bit of the players, the bottom of the barrel prospects, even though they're not that bad. But nonetheless, starting it off at 22, we are going to have Mr. Pavel Kravoskivi. Now, Pavel Kravoskivi was drafted in 2014, a long time ago, 164th overall, and has spent a lot of his time in the KHL. Last year, in the KHL, 56 games played, 17 goals, 21 assists for 38 points. So you might be thinking, Jake, those are really damn impressive numbers for the KHL. Why? I've never heard of this guy. You've never heard of this guy because most likely he will never leave the KHL. He was one of those draft picks that he looked good. Oh, will he come over? Will he won't? But at this point, I just don't know if he will. If he comes over, he is a complete wild card in the Jets system. He could be a top 6 guy. He could be a bottom 6 guy. You really don't know with KHL players, but he's got a ton of potential. He's a really good fit and scorer over there. I'd love to see him come over any day. Maybe, Pavel, please come over, be our Pavel Bure. But nonetheless, we'll have to wait and see there because he could never play a game for the Moose and Jets, and then he can never move up on this list because he's just a guy that's in the system but isn't really a part of the system. Moving on from him, though, going over to defensive prospect from the 2017 draft, 211th overall, Krua Evgenson. Now, I probably butchered that because my French is horrible, but nonetheless, he plays over in Niagara University last year in 21 games played, 1 goal, 11 assists for 12 points, also playing 7 games with Jacksonville Icemen in the ECHL, 7 games played, like I said, only registering 1 assist. He's a very interesting prospect from 2021. He was drafted this year, 82nd overall. No, he was in 2017. I'm jumping the gun on that one, but nonetheless, we're getting to the end of the video. I'm forgetting things, but he's still a very interesting prospect, but I just don't know what to expect from him. From this point, he's 2017. He hasn't moved up this list. He's a good player. Maybe he makes the Moose. Maybe he doesn't. We'll have to wait and see, but I still think he has some value, but definitely a D-tier prospect, just for me because I don't know that much about him. Moving over to 24, the second last prospect on this list is Dmitry Kuzmin, a guy drafted this year, 2021, 82nd overall, getting it right this time, but nonetheless, he played over in the Belarus Ekstraliga League. If that's a thing I didn't know about. Nevertheless, 46 games played, 3 goals, 9 assists for 12 points. The only reason I have him at D tier is because I want to see more of him and learn more about him, and I couldn't give him a rank of D, C tier, or B tier just because I just don't know that much about him, so I gave him the D tier. And, ladies and gentlemen, rounding up this list, the 25th prospect, the man that was last on the last list and last on the current updated one, Eric frickin' Comrie, our backup goaltender. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how to even say this. We haven't even been putting them on the list, but nonetheless, there you go. Bam. That is it. Eric Comrie. What else do we need to say about Eric Comrie? Do I even need to say anything? Guy's bounced around more than... I can't even think of an analogy. That's how much he's bounced around. He spent 4 games with the Moose, 1.23 goals against average with a 947 save percentage. It's very skewed numbers. He's not that good. Either way, our backup goaltender potentially next year from 2013... 59th overall, the oldest prospect on this list. I'm still calling him a prospect because the guy can't even stay in the NHL. I don't know. I had to put him on this list. I had to. No way I couldn't put Comrie on this list. But yeah, that's it. That's it. 25 prospects ranked. Bam! There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I hope you enjoyed this video, ladies and gentlemen. This was a long one. I hope you stayed with it and enjoyed it. I also hope you like the new camera. I hope you do. I think it looks nice, but you guys let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe, like, and share with all of your other Jets fans and hockey fans out there. As you can tell, I'm a biased Jets fan, but regardless of the team that you root for, definitely consider dropping a subscription if you want to hear another fan's perspective on news in the NHL from time to time. With all that being said, follow my Twitter and check out all my other associated links down in the description below. With all that being said, peace, love, and positivity to all you beautiful people out there in the world. I will be back with some more NHL content very, very soon. Thanks so much for watching. Peace out. Have a great rest of your day, and go Jets, go.